Welcome to the Keeping It Realty podcast, where we talk everything real estate in East Tennessee. Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Tyler Frazier, and I am the host of the Keeping It Realty podcast. Welcome to episode 3. Today we have with us Casey Halsey. He is a local real estate agent and an investor here in the Tri-Cities with Greater Impact Realty. Let's see what he has to say. But first, let's talk about pre-approvals. So first-time homebuyers, if you're looking to buy a home and you're not pre-approved yet, you are wasting your time. And here's why: because real estate agents aren't going to want to show you any houses if you're not pre-approved yet, because they aren't even sure how much you qualify for or if you qualify at all yet. Luckily, there is an easy solution to this. All you have to do is call Jason Scott with Cardinal Financial, which is our sponsor for today's video. Jason can make sure that you get the pre-approval letter that you need before looking for houses. Or if you're not able to get pre-approved yet, him and his team down at Cardinal Financial can make sure that they give you the right steps and things that you need to do in order to become pre-approved. Jason and his knowledgeable staff over there at Cardinal Financial are there to help you achieve your goals on becoming a new homeowner. For all of your residential mortgage needs, all you have to do is go to Jason's website, and that is jasonismylender.com, and he will help you out. But yeah, man, appreciate you coming on to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Excited to see how this is kind of transpiring and kind of coming about.
Yeah, man. So you and your wife are a team doing real estate.
Correct.
So explain how, I guess, that dynamic works. Like, do you guys have specific roles that you do, or do you both just pitch in to, to help facilitate,
right,
things with real estate?
Yeah, great question. And so, she's been in it for, like I said, she's been in it longer than I have, about seven and a half years, give or take. I just got my license back in June, I want to say. We've been heavily involved in real estate, through that whole process. But once I kind of came in, we were kind of working on who's going to do what, like you're asking, right?
Right.
Who's going to work more with, these particular projects or whatever we got going on versus another. But yeah, we kind of just tag team whatever's out there, and one of the reasons why we do that is so that we're available for who we're working for, because we've also got 2 small kids, so we have to tag team that as well, right? And I believe you have a little girl as well, right?
Yep.
So you know how it goes, right? It's like you got to find something to where you can be available when you can, right? So it kind of helps us from that standpoint, but we kind of hit all the aspects together.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I guess it's good, like if you were supposed to be at a showing or something and something pops up with your kid, like one of you can come off of it to take care of it or whatever. So I bet that's pretty nice, because normally you don't have that. If you're just an agent, you're, if your wife's or your spouse is in healthcare, they can't come off what they're doing to come do anything. So I bet that is definitely a plus. What's one thing you wish you would have known before getting into real estate?
Well, my story, I guess, coming into it is going to be a little different than a lot of people just coming into real estate without knowing much about it. So, for me, the biggest thing was just so my personality kind of, has always been, I'm a talker. I like to get with people and, meet a lot of people. So, that was kind of what drove me toward, you can think of it as like a sales role, right? From that standpoint. But, wishing of what I would have known coming into it, to me, it's always like you're going to always be learning things. So there's always, something new, but that's more of an exciting thing for me than it is anything. So, I don't feel like I don't have any regrets of not knowing this before coming into it, right? Because it's ever changing. So it's just something that you kind of plan for ahead of time. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so there's always something new that's changing, whether that's the market, the people that
which
you're
recently
working with,
happened,
right? So and it keeps it interesting. That's what makes you want to keep coming to it and working on it each and every day, right? Because you have something new to offer your people that you're working with. And I mean, ultimately, that's why we get into this, right? Because we're here to help others transition from one point to another in real estate. But it's a monumental shift in a lot of people's lives, right?
Buying that first house and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
what did you do before real estate?
Yeah, so chemistry was actually my background, and thus I worked for 10 years at Eastman Chemical Company.
Okay.
So, we're both, my wife and I were both from Kingsport. Both have lived there our whole lives.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I never once thought I would ever work at Eastman. Growing up, it never was like on the plate. But come to find out, it's a good job. So I went right after school. Went in there. I started out in our research and development. Worked a lot in our plastics division. So which Eastman's really big in right now with the whole recycling and stuff. So I worked with a lot of the people along those different projects early on, and then got into the corporate side of things with our pricing departments, our procurement. But yeah, I was there for 10 years, enjoyed it, worked with a lot of great people. We just had an opportunity that made sense for us to, take the next step into, full-time real estate for myself, to join Heather and everything. So
right. Yeah. Because you guys did, you flipped houses and everything. When did you start doing that? Was it when you were at Eastman or?
Yeah, so we actually, the first investment side of things that we got into was more the rentals aspect. So we bought, I'm trying to remember the first, when we first started. I was at Eastman, but we bought like a single family home, but it was kind of a unique one because it was actually two homes on the same property. So it was a duplex, but not really a duplex because they were individual homes.
Right.
But that was our dive into the real estate investment space.
So you went straight into rentals.
Straight into rentals.
A lot of people do flips first and then convert to rentals. So it's why did you? Were you buying these things turnkey, or were you buying them and fixing them up?
It was a semi-fix up, I guess you could put it that way, because they weren't rentals beforehand. It was actually owned by it was in a family, and they built the two houses for the sons, I believe.
Yeah.
Nobody lived there for a while, and they were older homes and stuff like that. They were small. One was a 1-bed, 1-bath. The other one was just a 2-bed, 1-bath. So they weren't big homes by any means. But we went in, we kind of fixed them up a little bit. That was our very first experience, I guess you could say, getting into it. But yeah, we fixed them up, we rented them immediately, and the rest has been history because it's that's really what kickstarted everything for us. Yeah.
Do you still have those rentals?
We don't. So
did you sell when the market was hot?
we did, and it's kind of interesting because I sold them to a good friend of mine because he was getting into the rental aspect and or the rental space, and he was like, just looking to get into it, and I was like, well, let's talk about this one. Let's see if you'd be interested. It's got a good return. It's for the most part, fairly easy because it had renters and everything like that. So yeah, we sold it to him. But I was trying to think also, we've since then, because we've bought a handful of different types of properties too since then.
Right.
We've had, so we started out with those. We bought duplexes. We've bought a quadplex. I don't think that we've done any more single family homes, but I guess it depends on how you want to classify it. We bought a, it's not really a mobile home park, but it kind of is because they're all double wides, but they all sit on a third of an acre lot. So it's more of a manufactured subdivision, I guess, right?
Gotcha.
But yeah, we've
really nice trailer park.
yeah, I guess you could put it that way, right? And it was that was our biggest one that we did.
How many units were on that?
We've got 25 units in that one.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So do you own just the park, or do you own the trailers and then rent those as well? Are people just paying lot rent?
We own everything.
Really? Yeah. So that's where there's probably a lot of return of investment off that one.
And that one we bought it as a value add opportunity. It was a big purchase, but that was the one that we've probably increased our gross revenue about 25% since we've had it. But we've also increased our operating expenses by probably 50% because we had a lot of catch up to do. We had roofs. We've remodeled and gutted probably 12 to 15 of them already, because they needed it, and that was what we were getting into. So, but, our net operating income has also gone up by 15%. So, I mean, it's been a sum gain, right?
Right.
Expenses have gone up, but
over time it'll continue to increase too.
Right, exactly.
Because like putting roofs on stuff, I mean, you're good for 20 years or so before you have to do those capital X,
Yeah. And it's a learning experience, right? I mean, that's the thing. You learn a lot as you go through these, and now granted, we don't have as many homes as we used to. I mean, at one point I think we were up to 55 doors.
Oh wow.
Which was, it's a lot, right?
Were you managing them yourself, or did you have property? You managed 55 by yourself.
I still do it. Well, let me take that back. I think I only managed up to 41 at one time.
Okay.
So not as many as 55, but we're up there. I think we've had a total of 55 doors. But
take me through that, because on the last episode when we had Mark, every single one of his he uses a property manager just for. I guess just more of a streamlined process that works for him. Why the decision to do them yourself? Are you just really good at property management and you like it and you enjoy it, or you want to save the money off of it?
So I wouldn't say that I'm just really good at it. I need to be humble, because, I mean, again, that's another one that's always a learning experience too.
Right.
You're learning something new every day. But no, I enjoy it. I mean, it is a lot of work. Don't get me wrong.
But your phone's ringing all the time. Hey,
it does.
Our toilet's leaking or whatever.
Yeah, you get a lot of stuff.
How many doors do you have currently?
Currently, so we've consolidated down to pretty much just those, and we have a few more. So I think we only have 28 right now.
That's still a lot to manage, because I mean that's 28 sets of problems to happen on any given day. Just out of my own curiosity. Do you run into problems often with that? Like, does your phone ring every single day with some kind of issue amongst that much volume that you're managing?
Early on, it did a lot more because, like I said, we had a lot of catch up to do. But we knew that going into it, right? It was more work than we probably even realized at the time, but it was good because we knew what we were getting into for the most part. It was just that once we started going, we realized, let's just keep doing what we're doing because it's making an impact.
Right.
And I say that the biggest reason why we do that to that extent is because, don't get me wrong, it's a business. Okay.
Right.
We are doing this to make a profit and have an income, but we're also doing this to provide a suitable place for somebody to live.
Right.
Right. And I mean, you know it as well as I do. There's a lot of rentals out there. I mean, I think right now I saw a statistic. There's over 60,000 rentals, single family home rentals in the Tri-Cities. And I was just like, I was blown away with that. I saw that statistic and I was like, my goodness.
That's
and
wild.
A 97% occupancy rate. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So the rentals are out there. I mean, the people that are renting are out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel,
there always will be.
Exactly. And so, with that, even though it's a business, I still feel like we have an obligation as a landlord, as an owner, as a manager, to provide the best quality that we can. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I have self-managed with our properties, because I like to be involved. I'm not saying that I'll manage it forever.
Yeah.
We may turn it over at some point, but the biggest reason why I started out, and I'm still doing it right now this way, is so that I know what's going on, and I'll also know later on down the line, if I do decide to turn this over, that I'll know what to expect. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'll know what is typical, what is normal, how to accomplish this, how to accomplish that, right? I'll have that knowledge base ahead of time, because a lot of times people, rentals sound really good. It's a passive income, right? You hear that a lot. And
it's passive if you have enough of them to make it. Because I talked about this on the last episode too, that a lot of people think that you get one rental, like you buy a house and you put a renter in it and you're making $800 a month profit.
Yeah.
And realistically, it's like $200.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm doing all this work for hardly anything, but it's the volume that gets you to that passive income. If you have 25, 30, then it is passive income.
Yeah. And it definitely, there are aspects that are passive, but the number one thing that I tell people, especially now as an agent working with investors and people that are wanting to get into the space, or are still kind of in it but a little newer, is like, listen, there's a there's work to be done, right? You've got to have a process put in place. There's a lot of groundwork that you need to take care of ahead of time to get to that more passive feeling. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know if I'll ever get to a point where I feel like it's 100% passive, regardless of what it is, because you always got it up there in your mind of what's going on.
Yeah, there's still things that are going to go on, even if you had them fully managed by, a property management company. They're still asking you things every now and then. But that's probably as passive as you could get it, but in exchange for 8 to 12%.
Yeah, there's a cost
of the gross
associated with it, of course, right? And that's what you're looking at. From when you're comparing properties out, how do you compare one property to another to say, is this a good investment, right? There's a handful of different ways to look at it. We use the capitalization rate, cap rate.
Right.
You're taking your net operating income divided by your purchase price of what you're going to get. It's a good comparison because it kind of takes out all the weeds of what you're, don't worry about the loan because that's going to vary from property to property, person to person, because somebody else's is going to look a lot different if they're incorporating their loan versus, how much they put down, or are they buying it with cash, whatever.
Right.
So really getting down to that net operating income and figuring out what that's going to look like is your best way to compare, right? And so that's what we do. I mean, we do that every day, right? That's what we're looking at when we get into these properties, and that's what we're trying to improve upon. Do we have that opportunity? Is there a value add opportunity to get that, and stuff? So, it seems daunting at times, but it's all about the numbers,
right?
It takes the emotion out of it because it's very easy to get emotionally attached to a property when you're wanting it. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And be like, man, but it looks so good, and I feel like we could do this, we could do that. But if we do this, and maybe try to change it a little bit, I mean.
Some of those things don't actually add value,
Exactly.
It's different when you're putting in, like taking up the old countertops, putting granite in. That does add value. But, if you were doing like a furnished rental or something, putting really nice furniture in it doesn't yield you a better return.
Yeah.
Because it's the same amount. It's not going to yield you any actual value. So how much do you think? So you doing? It sounds like you're pretty busy with investing, as well as residential real estate. Now, does you and your wife both do the investing together? So you do everything together, or is it just?
Yeah, I'm probably more heavily focused on the investment side of things. So especially when we get into the real estate transactional side of it, if we're working with an investor, typically I'm kind of taking the front head of that, and working together with them on that, just because that's what I like the most, right? That's my niche, however you want to say it, right? In real estate is the investment side of things. So, that's where I can add value, because when you're working with somebody, it's nice to be able to have that explanation and be able to walk them through it,
right?
And not just come in and say, yeah, we can go look at this and you can put an offer on it. It's like, let's think through this and make sure that the numbers are going to work. Let's make sure that you're accounting for everything. And that's one of the biggest things that, you don't think of all the parts and pieces to it when you're getting into it. Right. So, those are some of the things that I work on probably the most in that niche of the investment side of things. But yeah, I mean, it's fun. I mean, that's why I got into it full time, was because I enjoyed what I was doing while I was kind of doing it. I say part-time, but it was really kind of full-time Eastman, full-time real estate as well, But
that's what it takes to build something. I think you have to be full-time at it. There's a lot of people that are, that work a job still, that are trying to get in real estate, but it seems like they don't really take off until they leave that other job.
Yeah.
Because then they can focus all of their time, effort, and energy into growing something like that. So it sounds like what you did.
Yeah.
What was the point where you were going to leave your full-time job to be in real estate and investments full-time?
Yeah. So
was there a kicking point? Your boss come in there and gave you a bunch of work? Yeah. You're like, you know what? Screw it.
No, it's kind of funny because it was kind of always, I'll say it was always in the works. I worked at Eastman, and whenever I'll put it this way, when I started getting into real estate, that's when it kind of kick-started everything. Right. So I knew it was kind of just, I was working toward that goal. But I remember when I started, I worked with a lot of guys and girls that were in the business for a lot longer than I had been. They had been there for like 15, 20, 25 years, because there's a lot of people who have been at Eastman for a long time.
Oh, yeah. There's full-timers,
lifers. Right?
Lifers, yeah.
Yeah, and great people, because, they know a lot about the company. They know a lot about everything that's going on. But I told them, I said, look, I came in at, I think I was 22, because I just graduated from ETSU. And I said, my plan is to retire by the time I'm 30. And I was like,
and they probably all laughed.
Oh yeah, of course. And
that blue collar mindset always does. Yeah. I said the same thing when I worked at Bristol Metals. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be here forever. Like I want to retire, when I'm, 35 or whatever. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, okay, bud.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the joke, I guess, at the time. But I left when I was 32. Which I'm 32 right now. And so I missed about a couple years, but didn't technically retire, I guess, probably working as much, if not more now,
You always do, but I think when you're self-employed and you're doing something for yourself, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
Because I hands down work more hours now. I worked 40, maybe 48 hours a week at my, being a welder, and probably 90 hours or something, because there's always something that you could be doing to grow your business. So you definitely trade that for everyone says I want to work for myself. It's like, well, you better get ready to work more hours.
Yeah. And like you said, though, half the time it doesn't necessarily always feel like work. Now there are still aspects of it that are still
got to work.
This is work, right?
It's work. Some parts are work, but
you wake up and you're getting on the phone, you're doing this, you're checking emails, you're doing a lot of that stuff still on a day-to-day basis, but it doesn't stop, but it's all the other stuff that comes with it.
If you have that true entrepreneurial spirit, you'd work 100 hours for yourself rather than 40 for someone else, because it's worth more to you, I think.
Yeah. So. There is an aspect of flexibility to it, right? That was one of the biggest reasons why my wife, Heather, got into real estate, was because we had kids.
Yep.
And it was...
a lot of people do that.
It was a flexible schedule to an extent, right?
And you can bring your kids too. Like if you got to go to a showing, you can bring your kids.
Our kids have been
sometimes.
to more showings than we like to admit.
Oh,
right?
Trust me, I'm right there with you. I go shoot houses. Hazel's in my arm. Like I'm got Hazel in one arm and my camera in the other. So it's I definitely understand that. But
our son Hayden, he's 5, so he. He can walk through a house and kind of go through all the stuff, and he's like, why are they doing this, or what is this? Because he's seen so many different ones.
Right.
He's normally the one that's unlocking the door for us and all that stuff now. He likes to work with the log boxes.
Free labor, buddy.
Exactly.
Free labor. Go ahead and put the sign on the yard there.
Yeah. But if we get in the car, he's like, are we going to another house? And it's like, maybe, but no, not necessarily.
You got homework, bro. We got to get home so you can get homework done.
So, no, but it's... that is one of the biggest reasons why, she got into it. And then also for myself, because you do get to kind of create your own schedule. You get to do as much or as little as you want, right?
And your paychecks will directly correlate with that.
It, So, it's not an easy job.
Right.
I'll say, though, that over the past couple of years, it's probably been easier in some aspects.
Yeah.
And there's been a flood of agents into the market, which is good. That's fine, because there's a lot of people out there, but the market is definitely changing. So it'll be interesting over the next 6 months to a year, and kind of ongoing to kind of see what everything pans out to be like.
Yeah. Where do you think the market's headed? Because, for the past, I guess, a couple years since COVID started and everything, the market, turned up for as far as selling, because there was low supply of houses, like record-breaking lows. Right. There was just nothing on the market, coupled with all-time low interest rates. So everybody wanted to buy because it was basically free money, 2% interest, 2.5% interest rates. Mm-hmm. So you had everybody wanting to buy, not enough houses to buy. So when you did get a listing, it was going to go super quick. Yeah. But now it's definitely changed, because for 2 years, probably over a year and a half, I don't think there was a single open house
Yeah.
Because you didn't have to. Even the huge $1 million plus listings were going incredibly quick. So, but now there's open houses. Things are a little bit harder. I think there's definitely more inventory that's came up. It's still not normal. I don't think it's at normal levels still, but interest rates are coming up. They're at like 6 to 8%, I think is what's average right now. So it's a little easier to buy a house, but it costs more to buy a house. So where do you think it's headed from here?
Yeah, so that's a great question because and we get asked that
every day, probably.
Every day, right? It's like, well, what do you think's going to happen? It's like, well, when I find my crystal ball, that's
no
when
one knows for sure,
right?
But everyone has an opinion on it. It seems so.
Yeah, and the way I kind of look at it, and I kind of I'm about the numbers, so I try to look at the statistics and try to look at what the data is showing and stuff like that. But you still do kind of have to rely on people that have been in the game for a lot longer than I have,
right?
And just kind of see where things are at. But one of the things that we're kind of anticipating, I guess you could say, is we're at a new level, right? We've kind of shifted up a bit because historically this area, the greater Tri-Cities metropolitan area or Appalachian Highlands, has been lower priced than national averages and stuff like that.
Yeah, like Nashville or something. Right.
And so we had some room to grow, right? It's a little quicker than probably what a lot of people wanted it to be. It depends on who you ask, right? But I think that we've kind of shifted up. I don't see us coming back down to where we were by any means. I think we've kind of set a new median, a new normal, right?
Yeah, a split four you're going for $150,000 3 years ago is $275 now, and I think that's
and that's where normal. I see a lot of that staying. But for us, the way that if you look at a market trend though, kind of in our area right now, I mean anything still under 250. It still sells like hotcakes.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times. I'm not saying that for every single one. But
it depends. If it's comparable, let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
If it should be at 180 and it's at 250, obviously it's going to sit. But if something is comparable to 250, that price range is still going really quick. I see it, weekly. We'll put something, we'll shoot something that'll go on the market and it's gone.
Yeah. And that's because, like I said, that's where that new normal is. That's the
a lot of pre-approved buyers.
Affordable housing now is in that range. So that's where, and it's comparable to what they can afford with the new interest rates that are coming up, right? Which, I mean, and historically the interest rates are not bad.
Yeah, it's actually a decent interest rate, but everyone's been so spoiled with, well, my sister bought a house and got it for 2.8%. I was like, well, she bought it when
great
she
timing.
bought at the perfect time. And if she could actually get her offer accepted, that was the hardest thing. Everyone had these low interest rates, couldn't get anything accepted. But the people that did are sitting on gold.
Yeah.
Because, if they keep it, 7 years, they've already made tons of money there
it's been an interesting couple years, that's for sure. But I mean, we have seen a lot of price reductions here lately.
What do you think that's from? Whether it's because there's a couple different thought processes on why there's price reductions. Is it because people are used to what the market was and haven't caught on yet that it's a different market? Because for a while, comps weren't even being used sometimes. They were just like, well, there is no comps because they're going 100 over. So they were skewed. But you have that thought process, or is it just there's not enough buyers for that price range? What do you think it is? People do you think that you see a house that gets listed and you're like, that is $50,000 overpriced? What are they doing? And then they have to reduce, or do you think that that's a fair price? I don't know why it's not selling. Is it interest rates or what?
Right. I think it's a combination of multiple parts of that. Right. And, I think the interest rates has deterred some people from going to a higher level than what they may have done originally. Right. So that's kind of leveled things out for some people. The thing is there's still a lot of sellers that want to sell their house at the price that was selling last year and a half ago. Even back in July was a hot time. Even this year, I mean the average home sale price was like $285, $287 or something like that in the area, Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia.
Right.
And now, I mean, we've dropped down to about, I think September's report came out like 270, something like that. So we're going down, right? I mean, part of that's indicative of the time of the year.
Probably just settling more than coming down.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so we're getting back to that point. But I do think a lot of the reductions, though, are based on sellers wanting to,
try to get as much money out of it.
Exactly.
Right?
And, I mean, because they could for the longest time. And, now we don't see it as much because – interest rates have gone up, so you don't have the same pool of people that are digging into those higher priced properties. Because I mean, like today, we had 57 new listings come up within the last 24 hours, but we also had 57 price reductions as well. So it's
wow.
I mean, the market it's leveling itself out. There's a lot of stuff moving and a lot of parts taking place right now.
So, talking about like price reductions and everything, if you listed a house today in this kind of market, and your sellers obviously always want top dollar. Let's say it had a lot of great things going for it. Let's say it was $300,000 house and it was worth $300. Like the comps were in all at $300, but it was at the top of that price point, and then it's sitting for a little bit. What's your plan to help get it sold before a price reduction? Like, what's your is it throwing more marketing at it, or how's your approach?
Yeah, and I think it varies from property to property, obviously, and it varies from seller to seller, right? Because you're dealing with different dynamics with the people that you're working with,
based on how fast they want to move it.
Right.
Let's say you have a really motivated seller; they got to get out pretty quick, but they also want as much money out of it as possible. What do you think your plan would be?
Yeah. So the conversation I had, I mean, obviously we were running comps, right? We're trying to see where it's at. If everything comps out, but depending like I said, if they're motivated, if they're wanting to move and stuff, I try to lean on the conservative approach because, and I do that for myself. And I'm not saying that just because there's people that will like bottom out their price just to get it sold and move it and stuff like that. And if you need to do that, that's okay, I guess. But I'm not going to advise that. But I am going to be more conservative and say, look, if we really want to move this and it's worth this, but you're willing to be at this level though, let's move it down a little bit because you're going to drive more interest. You may still end up getting that level, right? You're going to be at that. You're going to have the opportunity to get to that more so than you would be just going straight to it, especially with the way things have kind of gone now, right? So there's a couple different approaches, from that standpoint, but I definitely try to stay on the more conservative side because we're not necessarily in the same market to where you can just push the envelope every single time.
Right.
Now, some properties still have that capability, right? There's, we're saying like higher price properties, sometimes they're sitting a little bit longer now, but I mean, there's still properties, 500 plus, 600 plus that'll sell in 24 hours because
they're
there's
priced
something else that's with it though, right? They've got land with them. They've got an extra garage out in the back that, the husband or whoever, the wife even, wants an extra space, so it's an extra feature that it may have,
to have that perceived value. Yeah.
Right. Because it's more than just a regular house that's actually worth that, but it's got something else to kind of set it apart. That's the biggest thing right now is like if you have something that can set you apart, you can push it a little bit.
Right. But
if you're kind of still just a normal comparable house to the rest of the market, I try to stay more conservative if possible. Again, I'm gonna work with my clients, and we'll come to an agreement and figure out what's gonna make sense. But it's also having the expectations set there. That's one of the biggest things. It's communication, knowing what the expectations are,
right.
And how to adjust and how to plan for that accordingly. Right?
What are some of your changes? Like if it were sitting and there, your seller's like, hey, what are you going to do? Well, we've already got on the market. You've already, got the, professional pictures done by me, right?
Yeah.
You come out and then you've done seemingly what you should have done. It's priced well, but maybe it's not getting as much traction. What do? You start doing open house and
there's a couple different. I mean, again, you can work on your marketing, right? Try to blast a couple different things, see where you're at, have conversations with different agents and different people that right?
Get the feedback.
Exactly.
Right.
And the biggest thing that you can do is just provide open communication, right? And say, listen, here's what we're doing, here's what we're getting. How do you want to go about and do this? Because
they're saying it needs a new roof or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the case, right? And it's like, listen, if we put a little money into this, we could get to this point.
Right.
Or, and ultimately,
Offer it as a
I know it
credit or
sounds
something.
bad, but a price reduction's not the worst thing in the world either. You
No.
know what I mean? And that's what I feel like, though, has been a change of a mindset, though, for a lot of people in the past couple of years, right? Is like, you don't do price reduction. Before then, if I was looking at a property, man, I was not ever thinking. My initial thought was, well, what do I think I can get it for?
Right.
Or now it's like, my gosh, what do we think that we can afford up to, right?
Right. Interest rates change.
So it's very different mindset. But again, that's the biggest thing. It's always setting the expectations ahead of time, and those are the conversations. As an agent, when we're working with our clients, that's what our responsibility is to them. We're there to kind of educate, coach, and advise. Right. Ultimately, it's their decision.
Right.
They're going to decide what they want to do. And we're there for them, through every step of the way, even if we don't agree on certain things, and be like, listen, we'll try it. We'll see what we can do, because you never know. There's been situations, we've all seen it, where it's like, there's no way. And next thing you know, it's under contract, no show, cash offer, no contingencies. Okay,
Great.
It worked out.
It reached the right person.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. There's always a possibility. And, that's the thing. But, again, you don't have that crystal ball to say, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
So, there's a lot of factors that go into play with it. But, again, I can't harp enough on the fact that it's just the setting the expectations ahead of time and having those conversations and not trying to promise the stars and the moon that say, here's what's going to happen.
Just being more realistic with someone.
Right.
So that way they're not let down or something.
Exactly. Because it's not the worst thing, like I said, to do a price reduction if it means you're going to get your house sold.
Right.
Because, money, a purchase price and an accepted offer is better than nothing.
Right.
At the end of the day. And again, it always depends on the situation of the seller and, what boat are they sitting in at that time? Do they need to move? Do they not need to move?
Right.
Right. But, I think that's been one of the things, though, that's been a big decision for Heather and I. So we're with Greater Impact Realty, right?
Okay.
Relatively new brokerage, been around for about a year and a half now. We've grown to almost 100 agents in the past year and a half.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why we ended up there, which that's been my only brokerage because I just started, right? But the reason why we are there is because of the intentionality that they have, right? And the impact, no pun intended, but is that what they're focused on, right? So they're focused on not only, helping our agents, working through that, education, training, just being there, being available, working through all those, because you're dealing with a lot of different things, right? As an agent, especially as a new agent, even a seasoned agent, and stuff like that. You're dealing with new things each and every day. But that's what they're there and focused on because we've got a team of 4 brokers that are constantly available for us that are kind of helping us through different scenarios and working on that. But we're very intentional about what we're doing, right? And the impact, I keep going back to that, but that's why they're called that, is because they're wanting to make an impact on our agents, but also the community involved, right? So back to what I was saying, early on, one of the reasons why I do what I do from the investment standpoint of the rentals is because I do want to make an impact on these people that are renting from us, right? I want it to be a pleasant experience because it's not always that situation, right? And
absolutely.
That's also what, GIR is wanting to do, is that they want to make an impact on the people that we're working with and working around, but the community involved, right? So that's one of the biggest reasons why we are where we are right now, because of what the intention is behind everything.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself in 5 years with real estate and investing?
Yeah. Great question, and it's one that I'd say probably changes every other day, right? Is what it feels like. But no, a lot of it is just still doing what we're doing, right? I don't have major plans to change anything different than what I'm doing right now.
Just want to scale it to a higher number. Do you want to own more rentals, or do you want to, What's that look like?
I would like to, but if the numbers don't hit, and the numbers don't hit, right? So I'm not going to be upset if my numbers
try to force it. Right.
Exactly. I don't want to force it just to hit a number, if that makes sense, of volume.
Right, for units, yeah.
But we're working on remodels, that we do that as well. I like to say remodels because I don't like to say that we just flip houses. Even though
sometimes there's a bad stigma.
And there's
with bad flippers.
Exactly.
Let's say that.
And we all see it, right?
Right.
But again, it goes back to, I want to make an impact. If we're going to do something, I want to do it right. Now, we've learned a lot through the process, right? We've messed up on things and had to go back and fix it, right? But that's why we're doing what we're doing. So I don't really want to change much. I would like to grow a little bit, and kind of keep doing and keep extending what I can. But that'll come in time. But there's no major plans ahead other than just keep doing what I'm doing and keep trying to get better at what I'm doing, because I enjoy this. I enjoy helping people. It's why I kind of switched over into this, because I could do it like full time,
right?
And have that more interaction than what I was doing just from the back of the envelope or back door of working on the management side of things.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Awesome, man. So if someone wanted to work with you or Heather,
Yep.
How would they reach you? What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so contact us via email if you want to. It's halseyholmestn@gmail.com. So it's a shared email that we use, and but you can reach out to us there. You can give us a call, 423-341-7158. That's my number. I'm usually the one that's answering the phones most of the time, so that's why I always give out my number. But yeah, definitely here to help and here to answer any questions that people have, because we had questions, so that's why now that we've kind of overstepped some of those bounds and gotten past some of those hurdles, we're here to answer the questions for other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, anybody that's wanting to, buy or sell residential real estate or get into, investing, flipping, or anything like that, it sounds like you guys have a good hold on it. So
definitely, because it's a great market to be in. There's a lot of learning to be done, and like I said, we learn every day as we go. But always here to help.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you having me.
All right, man. Yep, appreciate you. Thanks.